I just first got here. I got here in September last year, and I sat through your, that was like brand new process. Wow, that works. That works. I'm surprised. I have such a good memory. I wish it lasted longer. I think I checked if I got any cards. I think this is twice today. That's okay. We'll know who you are, Scott. Emails you see, they're all the same. First initial and last name. So you're gonna give me an update on Washington. Nice. Pretty well. Okay. Things are good.
I think they're going in a positive direction.
Well, Lou said people are talking.
Yeah.
I work on everything. Oh, yeah. Chris, that's always after a period.
Oh, yeah. We're definitely in a phase.
All right.
Although overseas, you might not be so Right. It morphed into something bigger ever since. Yeah. It would be managed for the arts.
Oh, and the foundation.
They have a governor that specify something in digital, what do you mean, video? And that's also managed for the arts. It's a priority for them.
One, two.
I just got it checked.
Oh, okay. What else? Yeah, do that. Sure. I know.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the 6:15 meeting of the Placerville City Council together on this fine Veterans Day. If you'd all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Cito, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Borelli. Here. Mayor Hagan.
Here.
Councilmember Patton.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Here.
All right. Announcements and presentations to the public. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. David Turch, our lobbyist. I'm not sure he likes to be called that anymore, but that's what it says in front of me, that he's a lobbyist. Advocate, I think, is the correct terminology today. And kind of bring us up to date on what's happening in Washington, D.C. I guess you could talk about the election, but it may or may not make any difference. But I think there's enough up there we can do it. Or is Madeline's going to speak on your behalf? All right, that'd be great.
All right. Well, good evening,
introduce
City
yourself to
Council
the public.
members. Thank you so much for allowing me to come speak to you tonight. I've had a really good time in Placerville. It's always lovely to be back here. And I know, Mayor Hagan, you mentioned I don't need to go into too much detail about the elections, so I won't. Okay. But I will give you a brief outline of kind of the effects of what's happened since last Tuesday. As I think everybody is aware, the Republicans have taken control of both chambers in the Congress, with the Republicans taking a majority they've not seen since the 1940s. And also in the Senate, they now have a 53-vote majority with their elections as well. I think something that we've been observing in Washington that's important to note is that although the Republicans won handedly, what we've noticed is that a lot of the people that had voted Republican did not necessarily vote Republican for the candidate or the ideals of the Republican Party. It was more of a vote against the president and his policies. So they definitely made their voice heard that way. But just quickly to touch on how the leadership's going to change in the Senate, it looks as though Senator Mitch McConnell from Kentucky is the likely candidate for the majority leadership. He's already had a phone call with the president last Wednesday to discuss some of their agenda for the next Congress. And in the House, Speaker Boehner has very much secured his position as Speaker. Now that Eric Cantor lost his primary and is already out of the House, he really has no competition outside of what Eric Cantor could have been. So he's also started really using his power in a way that we've not seen Speaker Boehner use that before, and that happened after the last election for Speaker. There were 12 members of the caucus that had voted against the Speaker, and he, after some analysis of campaign funding, we noticed that those 12 individuals received $0 from John himself and from his PACs. He also went a step further with 4 individuals and removed them from all committee assignments. So in a way, and I'm sure he wouldn't like me saying this, but he is taking a bit of a note from former Speaker Pelosi's way of running things, but I think it'll work definitely in his advantage into the next Congress. So quickly to touch on the working relationship between Speaker Boehner and Senator McConnell, they work extremely well together. They're both legislators, so they will work to get a deal made and get something moving along in the Congress, which is, I think, a positive step forward for the Republican Party. Another person who's going to be a big player in the next Congress is actually Vice President Joe Biden. He and Senator McConnell work extremely well together, and we definitely saw that last year with the government shutdown. The two of them worked really well together to get the shutdown to end and to start things moving along again in the House and Senate. So to quickly backtrack into what we have for the remainder of this Congress, the House will be in session for 16 days starting tomorrow. They'll be adjourning on December 12th. And the Senate has yet to finalize their calendar for the rest of the year. But the major issue that must be addressed before the adjournment of the 113th Congress is the appropriations bills. So currently, the likely option is an omnibus spending bill, which both the House and Senate majorities have said they want to get passed. If that doesn't work, their other option is a continuing resolution, or a CR. And I just quickly want to touch on the difference between an omnibus spending bill and a continuing resolution. An omnibus spending bill is really a conglomeration of the 12 appropriation bills in a more abbreviated format, but still an appropriations package, whereas a CR is just continuing spending levels at their current rate to a specific date. So at this time, and the press, it is a little bit misleading, claims that it's December 11th. And it is, but from reading that bill, we've noticed that it is 12:01 a.m. on December 11th that this bill will expire. So really, they have to get all of this out of the way on by December 10th. And already both of the House and Senate Appropriations Committee staff have already begun working on drafting a bill, an omnibus bill, and are working to gain support so that they can get this passed by December 10th. So now shifting back into the 114th Congress of next year, the major issues that are going to come up initially that Speaker Boehner and Senator McConnell highlighted in their opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal last week are to pass a series of smaller bipartisan pieces of legislation before delving into the really hard-hitting, controversial policy topics that will have to be addressed in the next Congress. The issues they want to address immediately are a jobs bill, the approval of the Keystone XL pipeline, and making changes to the Affordable Care Act. I think they've realized that repealing that is just not going to happen at this point, so it's time to just change it to ways that are more favorable. Then 3 other major pieces of legislation that will have to be taken up are immigration reform, tax reform, and the transportation bill, which I know is a major issue for the city of Placerville. Quickly to touch on immigration reform, the president has stated that he plans to do some kind of executive order before the end of the year. Now, what that is, we're not entirely sure yet, but speculation surrounds the number of immigrant children that are coming into the United States from South America and whether or not we would deport them or allow them to stay in the country. But it could be something else, but that's just what we've been hearing is the most likely option. Second, tax reform is coming up. or needs to be addressed. And in the Senate, the chair of the Finance Committee will likely be Orrin Hatch from Utah. And in the House with the Ways and Means Committee, it's likely to be Paul Ryan. So these two haven't worked together a lot in the past, but I think they'll have a good working relationship and we'll be able to come up with something. But again, tax reform is a huge undertaking and it's not anybody's too eager to get at. So we'll see what they're able to come up with, but that's something that really needs to be addressed. And lastly, the transportation bill. The current extension of MAP 21 expires on May 31st of next year. And actually, when they were debating whether or not they'd be able to create a new bill or extend MAP 21 back in September, Secretary Anthony Fox of the Department of Transportation sent a letter to the Congress saying, listen up, people. May is an awful time to be debating this because it's the heart of the construction season. We already have to have funding in place to continue these projects. And so we'll see what happens with the Congress and transportation. But again, the major issue is going to be how do we fund the Highway Trust Fund? And quickly to talk about committee chairmanships for both of those, the Senate has 3 committees for transportation, but the one pertaining to surface transportation is Environment and Public Works, which is currently chaired by your Senator, Barbara Boxer, who will likely take on the ranking member position. And the person that you would think the chairmanship would go to is David Vitter from Louisiana. But just from what I've been hearing on the Hill, he's likely to run for governor of Louisiana next year. So he's planning to chair the Small Business Committee. So it's actually going to go to James Inhofe from Oklahoma, who has a phenomenal working relationship with Barbara Boxer. They worked very closely on MAP 21, and for both of them, surface transportation is kind of their bread and butter. So they know how to cut a deal with that, and they should be able to work something. But again, the major thing will be funding the Highway Trust Fund and creating new programs for surface transportation. So quickly, I just want to touch on one more issue. I know an issue of a lot of concern from a lot of the city council members is the homelessness in Placerville. I've looked into programs through the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, which is part of Health and Human Services, but it also incorporates the Department of Justice and Housing and Urban Development. And there are about 6 programs through this agency that were all funded this past year and are likely to be funded again next year. But each of them use kind of it's a group effort between the court systems, the mental health and substance abuse counseling industry, and affordable housing. So each of them kind of incorporate that all together into different programs in order to help people that are in that situation. So I'll be sure to keep all of you abreast of anything that comes available, and hopefully we can work together on something with that. So I thank you so much for your undivided attention, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those for you.
Carol, do you have a question, or Tricia?
No, I think we.
None question? Go ahead. Go on. No,
We've had the pleasure of meeting with both of you over the last couple of days, and it's a pleasure to have you in Placerville, and really appreciate you keeping us abreast of what's happening in Washington, which helps us, coordinate our plans with what's happening at a federal level, and appreciate all of your ongoing support for the city of Placerville.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Yes. Thanks again. I guess David had heard that I was not running for re-election, so he didn't bother to send me an email for an appointment that he was going to be in town. I forgot he was going to be here.
Shocking.
Yeah. But I'm glad to hear that they're working on MAP 21, and even if they extend that for a period, that is key to continue the funding that comes to this county through the County Transportation Agency and SACOG. So those are key dollars that we, the taxpayers, send to Washington, and it is so important that we get some of those back and how we use them. Again, I know there are strings attached to how those funds go, but there were strings attached when they left us, when they left our wallet and gas tax forms.
Yeah.
A lot of people just seems to think that, gee, why don't you just change them and move down the street and fix that street instead of fixing this bridge or working on something else. They don't understand that the color of money as it comes here is controlled, and it's got to be used for that, or somebody's going to jail. And it's not going to be me, not on my watch anyway. But anyway, again, I'm glad to hear that you feel that they'll at least get something done before May, because I've heard as early as, I should say as late as October, that without an indication they were going to continue the funding on it, at least they were going to start shutting down. So I'm glad that they've continued working on that bill, and hopefully we get it all done before May gets here. Construction. Yes, Wendy.
I do have a question. I'd like our public to know as well that Madeline is wonderful about updating us on a regular basis of opportunities that come, and she's in touch with us and city staff throughout the year to ask what our ongoing needs are. And something that we've been talking, all of us have been talking a lot about with your office the last couple of years is historic preservation and the need for that. And I know you are well aware of us embarking on the repurpose of our historic courthouse on Main Street. Any news on that front as far as monies to help with historic preservation?
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit of funding right now through the National Endowment for the Humanities. There's not, they're generally for the preservation of the artifacts within a museum themselves, but I've seen more lately that actually does deal with the rehabilitation of an entire building or historical building. So I'll be sure to pass that information along to you, but there is more and more funding coming available for those types of projects.
That's good news. Thank you.
Yes,
Madeline.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. We appreciate you showing up here and saying hi to the people in Placerville. Thank you very much.
Have a safe trip back home.
All right, at this time, our next item is introduction of a new police commander by the police chief, I believe it is. I'll let you start there. I see there's a couple other people we have to introduce too, so.
Okay, I'll go first. Mayor and Council, this is Kay Ida. Kay is our new police commander. He took part in a very competitive and thorough process. He was the #1 candidate. He completed a thorough background and passed all the necessary examinations. Commander Ida began his law enforcement career as a reserve police officer in Los Altos, at the Los Altos Police Department in 1988. He became a full-time officer at the Los Altos Police Department in 1996. During his tenure at Los Altos, he served at the rank of corporal, sergeant, various assignments, watch commander, internal affairs, SWAT team leader, motors, traffic, training manager, etc. He has spent the last 6 years with the Stanford Police Department. He's been there since 2008. He went there as a lieutenant. He's been a lieutenant with that organization for the last 6 years. His current or prior immediate assignment with Stanford PD was leading the Investigative Services Division. Kay and his wife Jennifer have 3 children, Caleb, Connor, and Cassidy, and they look forward to raising their family here in our community. Commander Ida brings a wealth and depth of experience to our agency. He will assume command of the Support Services Division and have oversight of records, dispatch, property and evidence, detectives, reserve officers, volunteers, training, internal affairs, fleet services, and a few more duties to be assigned. He'll be swearing in officially next Monday, November 17th at noon over to Police Department, and everyone's encouraged and welcome to stop by. So, Commander Ida?
Thank you. I didn't know I was to be speaking, but
No, it's okay. Come to the microphone, please.
Mike, if you want.
oh no,
There's one right up here.
No, I just wanted to thank you very much. The process that the chief had put on was extremely challenging and I think very encouraging for me too, to be able to learn about the city along the way, to be able to speak with people, and I just think this is a great organization, a great city. My wife and I picked this city because I think that the close community network with the police department and the folks here is something that we want to do. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being here and coming in tonight a little bit earlier with your swearing in time, but thank you very much for your introduction to us, so we get to see who you are and what's going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We look forward to welcoming your family as well. So we're so glad you chose us. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. Also, at this time, I'd like Mr. Ravaz to introduce a couple of new employees in the engineering department.
We
can't hear you. Here.
Wait.
No.
Did you move over here? That's what we gotta fix. Let's see. So it's yeah,
There you
you can go to the podium and then they can stand up afterwards and we won't have them say too much if they don't want to. Thanks, Pierre. I'm sorry about that. We'll work on your mic next week.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor and member of the council. This is always one of the more pleasurable things that I get to do. So hopefully not to embarrass the new employees, but to sort of showcase their background. So let me begin by introducing Katie Ryerson. She's sitting or was sitting at my far right. Katie Ryerson is our new associate civil engineer in the engineering division of the Department of Development Services. Katie has been working for the city since October 22nd of this year. Katie comes with extensive engineering experience. She earned her Bachelor's of Science degree in civil engineering from San Francisco State University. Following her graduation, she has acquired approximately 10 years of professional engineering experience with a number of construction companies, including Flatiron Construction, McAlvane Construction, and William Young P. Construction. Her experience is primarily in heavy civil engineering construction projects and building construction projects both in California and Idaho. A few of the high-profile California projects he was involved in include the Highway 65 Lincoln Bypass, the Highway 80 HOV widening project in Roseville, the BART OAC Airport Connector project, the Presidio Parkway project in San Francisco, and the Willits Highway Bypass project. As the city continues to aggressively rebuild its infrastructure, and this is from below ground up, including its water and sewer distribution systems, bridge replacement projects, and road work, Katie's construction engineering experience will serve the city well. We are fortunate that a professional engineer of such high credentials has chosen to join the staff here at the city. With that said, please welcome Katie Ryerson to the staff of the City of Placerville. So the next person I'd like to introduce is our new city engineer, Rebecca Neves, who is sitting to my immediate right. It is my pleasure to introduce her as our new city engineer, and she will be managing our engineering division of the Development Services Department. Rebecca began working for the city on November 3rd, so this is, I guess, her third week. Excuse me. Rebecca comes with extensive engineering experience. She earned her Bachelor's of Science degree in civil engineering from Sacramento State University. Following her graduation, she has acquired over 10 years of professional engineering experience with a number of engineering companies, including Dawkin Engineering in Folsom and Morton and Petalio in Sacramento. Her experience focused on design engineering and project management and construction management for a number of projects that include the West Capitol Transit Center project in West Sacramento, the Palladio Mall project in Folsom, the Ironworks at the Triangle project in West Sacramento, and our own U.S. Highway 50 Western Placerville Interchanges project here in the city of Placerville. So she has some very local experience. Stepping into her role will be a challenging task. The city has been very successful in obtaining outside grant funding for many of its capital improvement and public work projects, and together with the use of Measure H sales tax money, we have generated a long list of current projects included, and I'm going to name off a few, and I hope this doesn't scare her and I see her in the office tomorrow morning. The Western Placerville Interchanges project, the Blair's Lane Bridge Replacement project, Clay Street Bridge Replacement and Realignment project, the Placerville Drive Bridge Replacement Project, Placerville Station Phase 2 Project, the El Dorado Trail Clay to Bedford Project, the El Dorado Trail Ray Lawyer Drive to Main Street Project, Hangtown Creek Sewer and Relocation from Locust to Clay Street Project, the Storm Drain GIS Layer Project, the Cabelac Road Winding Bike Lanes Project that was just completed actually, the Madrone and Giovanni Sewer Lift Stations, the Upper Broadway Bike Lanes, the Cedar Ravine Pressure Reducing Station Reconstruction, the Schnell School Pressure Reducing Station Reconstruction, the Pardee Big Cut Sacramento Street Water Main Replacement Project, the Main Street Overlay Utility Reconstruction Project, ADA and bulb outs, the Broadway Crosswalks Project, the Pavement Management System Update, the Sierra Tank Bypass Project, the Wiltsey Pressure Relief Project, the Ridge Court Water Pump Station Project, the Mosquito Road Overlay, the Mosquito Road Water Upgrade Project, and Construction Management RFP, and the soon-to-be Cabelac Road Safe Roads to School Project. So that, and I did just a quick summation of the total, just, you know, roundabout figures, so don't quote me on this, but we're probably looking at about somewhere in the neighborhood of $23 million worth of capital improvement projects that now she will be at the helm of overseeing and make sure that they get implemented here in the city. So it's no small order. And I believe Rebecca is ready to meet this challenge. Her experience in engineering, funding, and project management will serve the city well. We are fortunate that a professional engineer of her high credentials has chosen the staff here at the city, and with her on our team, and I'm using her own words, we can achieve great things. With all that said, please welcome Rebecca Neves to the staff of the City of Placerville. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre. And thanks, ladies, for being here. Glad to meet you both. I think I've met one or two of you before over the years. And I know I've met Katie recently, went up at City Hall when she was first hired. Again, thank you very much. At this point, Mr. Driscoll, we'll move on to item 4, closed session report.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, the council did not take reportable action in closed session.
Thank you. And adoption of our agenda.
Move for adoption?
Second.
Okay. And no changes, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And public comment period. We have no ceremonial matters. That was done earlier today at the Vets Memorial. And I said a few words on behalf of the city of Placerville, thanking them for choosing this spot for such a lovely memorial and the ability to put on a great event twice a year, Veterans Day and Memorial Day. And it's been my great pleasure to do that for the last 9 years that facility has been there. And I don't know if I did it every year. This year I did it without a resolution, which was partly my fault and partly the people who put together the agenda's fault. But I think I still did a pretty good short, sweet few words on behalf of the city of Placerville and how proud we are to have that venue here. So at this time, then I'll open up to item 7 is public comment, brief non-agenda items. Do we have any written communications, City Manager? Okay, so we'll open up oral communications. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and please don't slander anybody, and understand that if items that are not on our agenda that you're allowed to talk about. So please come up when you're ready, otherwise. All right, seeing nobody moving to the podium, I'm going to close oral communication. And consent calendar. We have items 8.1 through 8.6. Any changes or corrections? Tricia? Nothing? All right. Get a motion then to...
So move. Second.
It's been moved and seconded on the consent calendar. At this time, anybody in the public having any comments on items 8.1 through 8.6? Seeing nobody coming to the microphone, I will call for the question. Would you please call roll and roll call vote?
Vice Mayor Borelli.
Aye.
Mayor Hagan.
Aye.
Councilmember Patton.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Aye.
All right, item 9, that passes. Item 9, items pulled from the consent calendar, none. There are no ordinances scheduled, and public hearings, item 11.1, is going to be continue that to December 9th. Is that correct? Do we need any comments from the public regarding, or questions regarding the Boys and Girls Clubs? Okay. Then, by acclamation, it's moved. Do we need to, is that a,
Just to make the record,
Okay, can I have
a
a s-
motion for a continuance.
I'll make a motion that we continue the hearing on the Boys and Girls Club
Second.
until December 9th.
it's been moved and seconded? Any comments from the public on this? Seeing nobody coming forward? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Item 12, let's see. At this point, Mr. Morris authorized staff to release a request for proposals to perform a hotel feasibility study and continue efforts to attract partner funding from interested stakeholders.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you know, at the last meeting, we brought this item up, and I presented it to you, and through some initial work I had done and presented that it could cost as much as $20,000 for this study. A couple of things have happened since then. I've done some more detailed work, if you will, and found that we can probably get this study done for closer to $5,000 or less. I've spoken to 2 different firms that have stated, very reputable firms that have stated that they can do this work for this amount. I also, it's interesting, since that last report, the Sacramento Business Journal did an article, which I believe I shared with you, and I got a lot of calls from that, from interested consultants. I also recently, the Sacramento Bee also did an article regarding that, and since that time, I've spoken to a couple of hotel developers, local hotel developers, both of which were involved with the Gateway project. And they are both interested. I'm in the process of setting up a meeting with them currently to talk about that. So it's been very positive. What I'm asking tonight is that the council authorize us to release the request for proposals. It's not authorizing any funding at this point, just the request for proposals. We'll see what we get back in. At the same time, I have sent requests, formal letters of request to the Chamber, the Apple Hill Association, the El Dorado County Wine Growers Association, as well as the owners of those property and River City Bank, requesting their interest in participating in the study and the funding of the study. And I have not heard back from them yet, but I do have those requests out to them in writing, and I will follow up on those. So my recommendation is that we proceed with the request for proposals. We'll get those back in. We'll know what that is. Hopefully by that time, we will know if these other parties are interested in assisting with the funding. And then I can bring that back to you, and we can look at what amount we need to fund. And you'll still have that option at that time. If you determine that, no, we don't want to fund it, that we're moving in a different direction, we can reject all the proposals at that time. So that's my request to you at this time, that we can move forward with this project. I wanted to mention that I had the one discussion I had with one of the hotel developers. I said, is it worth it, that was involved with the Gateway project, because he knew what had been done in the past on that. Is it worth it for us to do this study? And he said, yes, it definitely is. It'll provide valuable information for us to help us proceed and market those sites to others. So.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Morris?
I think he
Okay.
was pretty clear in explaining the whole thing.
Okay. At this point, I'll open up the public. Any public comments regarding this particular item? Seeing nobody coming to the mic, I will bring it back to the staff.
I move staff's recommendation.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Because it's financial, or potentially financial, so no money at this point. Let's go ahead and call roll anyway.
Vice Mayor Borelli.
Aye.
Mayor Hagan.
Aye.
Councilmember Patton.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. And item 13 is council member reports from agency meetings. Ms. Borelli on the Transit Authority?
Transit met, and I don't have any report. We negotiated with our salaries, and we also learned about they're going to have a grand opening. They've just remodeled the entire building, and it's wonderful, and they did a great job, and so we'll be notified.
Great. And Trish, anything else out of that?
We also thanked Laurel Brentbaum with the Chamber for letting us use her facility for our training during the renovation.
Okay, great. And the Transportation Commission, let's see. Ms. Thomas.
Yes. Well, there was one very notable occurrence at Transportation that people will be want to hear about. We did, under a unanimous vote with one abstention, vote to deprogram the CMAQ money on the Clay Street project. And so we did send $1.3 million back to the table. Before that decision, I had conversations with the executive director of the Transportation Commission as well as our city manager, just wanting to know all the ramifications about this decision. And it did seem that at this point it is absolutely best, because there are time limits on that CMAQ money, and we were coming to the end of those, that we return it back to retain it within the city and be able to reprogram those funds somewhere else, hopefully in the city and certainly in the county. Otherwise, they would go back to the state, and we don't want that to happen. We want to retain them in El Dorado County. So we are now looking at additional funding for that intersection. So those funds were deprogrammed officially.
Okay. And LAFCO, do you have a meeting? No meeting. SACOG is tomorrow. We did have a town hall type roundtable type discussion, or round display type discussion on the 2035 transportation planning. It was over at the fairgrounds on last Thursday afternoon. Does that sound right? Wednesday afternoon. I left town Thursday. And it was well received. I thought we had a pretty good response from the public, and the public seemed to understand or like that format because they were able to go through each station, if you will, and ask the questions about planning for the future. And again, this is the update on the 2035 transportation planning for the region. And then tomorrow we have Thursday I have a SACOG meeting in Sacramento. Nothing unusual on that agenda. And that's about it for SACOG. SEDCorp, Ms. Borelli.
We didn't meet.
No meeting, all right.
I have one more, Mr. Mayor, that's noteworthy.
Yes.
Okay. The EIR for the courthouse project was this last week. Just the presentation of that. And so Councilmember Borelli and I did attend that, and there was some interesting information at that. It was not well attended. There were a couple of neighbors that were concerned about the noise during construction, and those were the only comments on the EIR. However, in the presentation, they noticed that with the courthouse moving from the historic courthouse on Main Street, that the EIR does reflect that there, will be an adverse impact on the Main Street courthouse. And their response was that the state is working with us to mitigate that. And so as Councilmember Borelli and I drilled down on what that meant, I mean, this was the Judicial Council was there, and it was a unique opportunity to speak with them. And they basically said, well, we give you moral support. There is not going to be money from the state to help us with this project. And that was that's not what we wanted to hear. I also drilled down with the Judicial Council members of that as well, and while they stated that they will help us in any way they can to preserve the historic resource, what that means is they give us moral support. So
Didn't they also say that, this surprised me, that it was a requirement that for an older, historic building, that they have to insist that it
Be restored and preserved,
Exactly.
yes,
And
yeah.
that surprised us.
Because, and they did say that the state is equally, they equally conscientious about wanting it preserved as a historical asset because it's a part of their history, although they're not going to give us any money to do that, which is really challenging. So pressing them a bit further, I said, well, if you're not going to give us any money to restore the Grand Dame of our Main Street, we told them about our Blue Ribbon Committee, and they were aware of that. And I said, we need the tools to help that committee succeed. And so I've pressed them to help us fund the impact study, and so they're working with our city manager to perhaps do that. And if they can help us fund the impact study, then we can give the Blue Ribbon Committee data and tools that they need to be successful. So that's what we're pressing right at this point. So just wanted to report on that.
And they also complimented us on our interest, and they said that goes a long way in supporting this whole program.
So much for moral support.
Yeah.
All right. Requests for future agenda items? Nothing? And city manager and staff reports. Any financial software conversion update, Mr. Warren?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Real quickly, I'm pleased to announce that the city's financial software went to the cloud officially November 3rd. The financial software, ASP Naviline, is now stored on a server in Lake Mary, Florida, with a secondary server in Atlanta, Georgia. The city previously stored its financial software on a server at City Hall. The old AS400 server is over 10 years old and is at the end of its useful life. The city did save $40,000 in one-time costs not having to replace that server, and also $15,000 in annual software maintenance costs. The city gained robust disaster recovery services worth $29,000 that it did not previously have. Now that the financial software conversion is done, staff is focusing on completing the online bill pay module conversion called Click2Gov. The Click2Gov software will provide customers with several convenient features, including online bill pay, including credit card, e-check, and PayPal. We tentatively plan on beta testing the Click2Gov software in December with a go-live sometime after first of the year. And once that happens, we'll plan on presenting a demonstration to the council as well as advertising the Click2Gov software on the city's website, Facebook page, and a flyer in the utility bill. So that's it.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Warren. Glad to hear that. Mr. Morris? Steve Yule has I don't know, he has a phone, or he doesn't have a microphone, excuse me. Anyone give me a call on your cell phone?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Community Services Department is working on the sound system for city council meetings.
That's good to hear.
In addition to that, our Public Works Division is conducting an extensive creek cleanup project within the boundaries of Hangtown Creek. And city staff, with assistance from California Fish and Game, CAL FIRE, and Caltrans, will be reducing some of the understory, raising the shade canopy to prevent flooding, and we're going to remove some non-native vegetation and garbage and other debris from Hangtown Creek. So you're going to see quite a bit of activity. The project is permitted, and it's under the oversight of Fish and Game. They'll be on site with us to make sure that we don't get into any endangered species or whatnot. And we've already walked the creek, and there are a few, so we'll be very careful. And if anybody has any questions regarding the project, I encourage them to call our office at 642-5232. And so we'll be closing down a lane of Highway 50 on the 19th to do the portion where there's a deep channel that runs behind a lot of the businesses right through the major corridor here. So the only way we can do that safely is to do a lane closure, but that should only be for 2 or 3 hours. So
Great.
just wanted to inform everybody that what we're doing and why, and it should be a really nice project when we're completed.
Okay, we've got a couple questions.
I just wanted to ask you how long do you think it's going to take? What is the completion?
It'll take us about a month to do all of Hangtown Creek. It's pretty extensive. We have to go all the way down to the wastewater treatment plant, and we're starting at the confluence up here behind Mosquito Outfitters. The portion behind the buildings right here, we hope to get done in about 3 hours. We're going to have 4 different CAL FIRE crews and Caltrans, and both our parks and our public works crews out there. So we're going to try to inconvenience people as little as possible in that area.
Great.
Do they, do the fire, is that part of their program to do this, or is this costing, what is the cost of this to the?
We use Growlersburg, and each crew's about $300 a day, and that comes with 7 guys and a supervisor and all the equipment to do that. So that's a really good deal.
And they do a wonderful job.
Yeah, they do. And this is going to complement an effort that we're making to do our storm drain study. We're going to be able to identify where all the inlets are from our storm drains into Hangtown Creek. And so that's another benefit of the project.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you.
Any other questions? Nope. Thank you, Steve. Thanks for update on that. And Mr. Morris, anything else? Okay, upcoming items, tentatively scheduled for the next regular scheduled city council meeting on December 9th, include the Boys and Girls Club appeal, certification of ballots from the November 4th election, oath of office for 3 new council members, recognition of the employee service anniversaries, COPS grant, Clay Street funding, closure of city halls, city offices on May 26th. And next meeting is December 9th at 5 p.m. closed session, 6 p.m. for regular session. Thank you all for being here.
Actually, before we adjourn, I wanted to invite, since we're not going to meet before the Festival of Lights, that's going to be the day after Thanksgiving, so I'd like to invite everyone in the community to come out that evening. It's a wonderful event when we light the Christmas
There's
tree.
also a parade on the 7th.
And the parade is on the first Sunday of December, so hopefully everyone will be able to come out. But the Festival of Lights is really an awesome event, so.
Thank you for
You're welcome.
reminding us of that. All right. Thank you very much for being here, and we'll see you in 4 weeks.